Hello dear students, my name is Shainan Gupta and I am an assistant professor in RPIIT Medical and Technical Campus. Today we are going to discuss about critical path method. What is the critical path method? Let's start with the history. It was developed by J.E. Kelly of Remington Rand and M.R. Walker of Dew Point. And the emphasis was on the trade-off between the cost of project and its overall completion time. The first test was made in 1958 when CPM was applied to the construction of a new chemical plant. Let's start with the definition now. CPM, Critical Path Method, is a project network analysis technique that is used to predict total project duration. Critical path is the sequence of activities between a project start and finish that takes the longest time to complete. Or critical path for a project is the series of activities that determine the earliest time by which the project can be completed. Or we can say the critical path is the longest through the network diagram. The longest path is called the critical path. Now, what are the steps in determining the critical path? Now let's have a look about the critical path method that is used in practice. The process of using critical path method in the project planning phase has 6 steps. First, specify the individual activities, or we can say activity specification. Now we can use the work breakdown structure to identify the activities involved in the project. This is the main input of the critical path method. In activity specification, only the higher level activities are selected for critical path method. When detailed activities are used, the critical path method may also become too complex to manage and maintain. Second, we determine the sequence of the activities, or we can say activity sequence establishment. In this particular step, the collective activity sequence is established. For that, you need to ask 3 questions for each task of your list. First, which task should take place before this task happens? Second, which task should be completed at the same time as this task, and which task should happen immediately after this task? After that, third step comes, draw the network diagram. Once the activity sequence is correctly identified, the network diagram can be drawn. Although the early diagrams were drawn on the paper, there are a number of computer softwares now such as Primavera that are helpful in creating the network diagrams. Then estimate the activity completion time. This should be the correct input, or we can say the direct input from the estimation sheet. Most of the companies use 3-point estimation method or COCOMO based methods for task estimation. So we can use the estimated information for the steps. Then comes identify the critical path. Identification of the critical path. For this purpose, we need to determine 4 parameters of each activity of the network. Earliest start point, earliest finish point, latest finish point, latest start point. Now what is the earliest start point? The estimated time an activity can start once the previous dependent activities are over is called earliest start time. Then comes earliest finish time. Earliest finish time is earliest start time plus activity duration. Then comes latest finish time. Latest finish time is the latest time an activity can finish without delaying the project. So earliest start time is LF minus activity duration. Other than that, there is a float time. The float time for an activity is the time between the earliest and the latest start time, or between the earliest finish or the latest finish times. During the float, an activity can be delayed without delaying the project finish date. Our last step is update the CPM diagram. These are the 6 steps that helps in determining the critical path method. Now, there is a critical path method drawn by those steps. Step 1, what we did in the first step, the activities are specified. What are the activities here? Then we decided the sequence establishment. After that we did the network diagram draw. Then we estimated the time for each activity. Then we identified the critical path method. Now in this particular diagram we assumed that all the durations are in the days. So we have the 4 paths. Path that goes from A to D to H to J. Then path 2, that is B to E to H to J. Then path 3, B to F to J, and the path 4, C, G, I, J. Then we calculated the length and it comes to be 14 days, 16 days, 9 days and 14 days. So as we know that critical path is the longest path throughout the diagram. So what is the critical path for us? So the critical path will be path 2, that is BEHJ will be the critical path for the project X. Why? Because it is the longest path in this diagram. Now critical path analysis. Critical path for any act work we has already discussed is the longest path through the activities entire network. Since all activities must be completed to complete the entire project, the length of the critical path is also the shortest time allowable to complete the project. Thus, if the project is to be completed in the shortest time, all activities on the critical path must be started as soon as possible. These activities are called the critical activities. That's all in the critical path method. I hope the concept is clear to you. For similar kind of videos, keep watching RPIIT Academics channel. That's all for today. Have a good day. Thank you.